Welcome to our channel, where we dive into the most pressing global topics and events. In today's video, we're delving deep into the G20 Summit, an international gathering of world leaders that has a significant impact on global politics, economics, and more. Join us as we explore the history, significance, key discussions, and outcomes of this influential summit. By the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to know about the G20 Summit. Let's get started. What is G20? A club of nations known as the G20, or Group of 20, gathered to talk about international political and economic issues. G20 nations collectively produced 85% of global economic production and more than 75% of global trade. Two-thirds of the world's population resided there. The EU was one of the G20 members, along with Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, the UK, and the United States, making up the other 19 countries. In response to the Asian financial crisis, the group was established in 1999. It was created as a platform for finance ministers and other government representatives to talk about strategies to regain economic stability. In response to the financial crisis that gripped the world that year, the first Leaders Summit was organized in 2008 with the goal of fostering global collaboration. In recent years, the G20 widened its focus to include topics like climate change and renewable energy. Each year, a new G20 member state assumed the presidency and determined the agenda for the Summit of World Leaders. G20 2023. The G20 Summit 2023 Delhi Declaration was the 18th G20 group meeting held in India, the summit's host nation. The Group of 20, G20, which consisted of a number of nations including China, Argentina, India, Turkey, and others, had handed over the G20 Summit presidency to India on December 1, 2022. The G20 Summit, which featured 20 countries and forward-thinking sessions, was held in India in 2023. This message was intended to notify you all that, on December 1, 2023, when the last summit was held in Bali, Indonesia, India assumed the G20 group presidency. One Earth, One Family, One Future, the theme of India's G20 presidency, reflected our G20 presidency's priorities, which included support for inclusive and resilient growth, advancements toward the SDGs, mission life and green development, technological change and public digital infrastructure, multilateral institution reform, women-led development, and world peace and harmony. The views and issues of the Global South and emerging nations were also amplified by India. In order to increase the G20's diversity, the 55-member African Union was formally admitted as a permanent member, on par with the European Union. The G20 only had South Africa as a member up until this point. The inclusion of the O would give the Global South a stronger voice within the G20, where the G7 countries had long held a dominant position. The decision also followed the BRICS expansion to include Saudi Arabia and Iran, among other countries, which was seen as an effort by Beijing to make it a potential replacement for the G20. The BRICS was another organization headed by China and Russia. President Joe Biden of the United States called the announcement of plans to build rail and port connections between the Middle East and South Asia and eventually to Europe, which included leaders of Saudi Arabia, India, and the United States, a real big deal. The Biden administration made the case for Washington as a different partner and investor for developing countries at the G20 grouping in an effort to offset China's Belt and Road Initiative on global infrastructure. The G20 leaders agreed to seek tripling the world's renewable energy capacity by 2030 and acknowledged the need to continue the phase-down of coal power, but they refrained from establishing significant climate goals. The committee did not offer any strategy for changing current targets and regulations to meet the goal of scaling up renewable energy. Additionally, it stated that a green energy transition would cost $4 trillion annually but provided no details on how to get there. Prior to the COP28 UN Climate Summit later that year in the United Arab Emirates, the G20 discussions were closely monitored. That's it for today's video. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel for more related content.